As temperatures drop here in Nova Scotia, the visible presence of tents in our community underscores the extent of homelessness. Sadly, this weekend brought a news of a resident from the Dartmouth tent encampment who passed away while sleeping outdoors. The incident has since sparked various reactions from different sectors. And joining me over the phone now is Suzy Hansen, a prominent NDP leader in Nova Scotia, a member of the Legislative Assembly. Honorable, you've been very vocal about this government's approach for homelessness. And in your recent statement, you highlighted the government's alleged inadequacies in addressing the situation. Can you elaborate a bit on specific policies or actions you believe are lacking?
Well, absolutely. Some of the things that are lacking are actually preparations for the cold weather, like an emergency shelter, um, even options for people to have a warming shelter. We know that that homelessness is happening, and it has been a crisis for some time now. And this government lacks to put anything in place until the last minute, and the stuff that they do put in place doesn't do enough.
Right. Crisis indeed. This tragic death of homeless individual has since brought attention to the issue. And what specific measures would you propose to prevent such incidents in the future?
Well, actually, we did propose a number of measures for preventative reasons over the past last year. Before Christmas last year, before the holidays last year, the wintertime, we put forward a number of measures to make sure that folks would actually have emergency shelter. And that wasn't done. There were a few spaces available, but not enough compared to the numbers that are unhoused. And then secondly, you know, there's so many preventative pieces, i.e., people are being evicted from their homes in the wintertime. We put a wintertime ban on evictions that wasn't passed at all, but we put forward, a measure that folks
Right.
wouldn't be evicted during the wintertime, which means, temperatures below freezing. And that wasn't passed. This government has a lot of opportunities to make those changes and has a lot of input. They choose not to do that work. And then we see the tragic situations that happen. Not only are people losing their lives, you know, limbs are being, injured in ways because of the freezing cold. Like, there's a number of things that this government could be doing and they just are not.
Really very sad to hear about the unfortunate situation. So, given the situation, how do you think the current government responds to the homelessness situation compared to the previous administration, and what changes would you advocate for?
Well, I mean, this is probably the most that I've ever seen in my lifetime of unhoused people and folks that are facing evictions and homelessness. I mean, I've lived in Halifax all my life, and I've never seen it to this measure. What I would say is we also need to be preparing for what we see happening. We know
Right,
that a number of folks are facing evictions, which in turn will lead to
right.
homelessness, which in turn leads to a number of other health issues. I think we, as a government, need to start thinking about, preventative measures. Like I said, they could close the fixed term lease loophole, so folks wouldn't be evicted after their fixed term lease was up. Like they could, change from the rent cap to rent control, because folks need a place to stay that's affordable and secure and safe. I mean, we could invest in more affordable housing and more public housing. The government has a lot of things that they could be doing, and they're not doing them. So I will say, you know, we need to look at the numbers. We need to treat this as an emergency and do what we would do in an emergency and create the spaces that are needed for folks that are unhoused right now.
I hear you, Honorable. A lot of people will argue that we can leave everything to government, and I believe we need all hands on deck to solve this situation. What role do you believe local communities should play in addressing the homelessness situation, and how can government collaborate with them more effectively?
That's a good question. So we see communities now stepping up. They've been stepping up for a long time. We've seen community members, purchasing tents for folks,
Right,
so that they can, have a warmer shelter.
right,
We see folks, providing food and extra clothing for people. Like, communities have been stepping up for a long time. And what the government should be doing is helping provide supports and investments for these folks that are doing this work. And as well, the government should be providing a shelter for folks. So there are a number of spaces that are available. There are a number of spaces that, basements are empty, or vacant. They could be collaborating with our service providers and our community services, to be able to collaborate to provide space and provide warming shelters for folks.
All right, let's move a little bit to those in your party, and how would you engage with them, those members of your party, to garner the support that is required for initiatives aimed at combating homelessness and addressing its root causes?
Well, I mean, within our party, because we are such a small caucus, we essentially are doing a lot of the groundwork. We are connecting folks with housing support workers. We're connecting folks with priority housing in ways that we can, through advocacy, through supports in whatever way that we can as MLAs. And I think we've been doing a pretty good job at trying to make sure that folks' voices are heard, by this government. But there's a number of people that need support that are not within our jurisdiction sometimes. And we need to start doing better at connecting and collaborating with each other to do that work for folks in all of our communities.
Absolutely, but are there successful models from other regions or countries that you believe could be adapted to effectively address the homeless situation in our own context?
Yes, no, absolutely. Like, I mean, I want to say, and I can't speak of can't think of the place right offhand, but there's a few places out in the west of Canada that are doing really great work, collaborating with nonprofits, collaborating with other service providers to provide, temporary shelters, to provide homes for folks, for an affordable rate, so people can actually have a roof over their head. It is happening across in other parts of the provinces across Canada. And we've mentioned these things to this government when we sit in legislature on numerous occasions about how we can do things differently based on what is working in Montreal, what's working out west, what's working. And yet this government has the information. They're the progressive conservative government is choosing not to act upon the things that need to be done right now. And I mean,
Yeah,
we
go
can think
ahead.
about we can even think about what happened when the Halifax explosion hit. We'll be celebrating that, in a few days. And when houses were decimated and people needed housing, they they came together. They created housing from the ground up for folks so that they could have a house to live in immediately. It wasn't like they waited 3 years or 2 years. It was literally people helping people do the work that is necessary. So we can do that. It's not impossible.
All right, and so one can argue also that it's been a lot for our province, from fire to flooding to now housing situation that we find ourselves now. Given the given the financial constraints governments often face, how do you propose balancing the need for increased funding to addressing the homelessness situation with
Yeah.
the budgetary priorities?
No, I think that's good too. I mean, at the end of the day, I've been an elected official for 2.5 years, and for 2.5 years, I've been saying the same things about how about we invest in housing that may be transitional, that will have wraparound supports, that may be helpful for folks that are unhoused. And every year we come up with a band-aid solution that says, let's just create a couple beds for shelters. Let's create, like, to me, it's not sustainable. So 2.5 years that I've been in office, we've been talking about similar things that could be helpful and that would be sustainable and that we could invest in for long term. And yet we don't see any type of long term sustainability when it comes to creating a safe and an affordable home or a roof over someone's head. And that's why we see the numbers growing, of unhoused people, across this province, because this government is not willing to invest. So yes, it does come down to budgetary priorities, but the longer we wait, the more expensive it's going to cost us to do the work that needed to be done 5 years ago, 6 years ago, right? So we have to start putting our foot down, saying this is a priority, this is a need, and let's do this now.
Before I let you go, MLA, do you have your final word for our audience?
I would say that no one should be bearing this weather both doors in a tent. And we as a government need to do better. We need to start thinking about how this is affecting each and every one of us as Nova Scotians. And when one is hurting, everyone is hurting. So we need to stop doing this and start pulling up our socks and doing the work.
Absolutely. I can't thank you enough, Honorable, for joining us today.
No problem. Thank you for giving me a call back.
I have been talking to Honorable Suzy Hansen, a member of the Legislative Assembly and prominent leader of Nova Scotia NDP caucus. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more updates. You can also reach us by sending an email to communityupdateNS@gmail.com. I am Promise Okoy, and I will see you soon.
To me, community is a rich network of people who live together, who worship together, who love together, who laugh together, who serve each other together. I'm Robert Wright, and you're watching Community Update.
Community Update is brought to you with the support of the following organizations, businesses and individuals: Heritage Canada, Canadian Association of Community Television Users and Stations, Cactus, Bailey-O, M4 Media, Flenjor Foods, Sheyi Ajetamobi, and Shokoto.